First thing I would like to say is I'm really honored that you are here today, and I thank you very much for your presence, each of you. I'm going to go right to the slideshow because I've got an awful lot to cover. Is my screen sharing now? Without any further delay, I introduce you to my book, Lost and Found. I welcome all this prayer registry parents who are here. It's about my connecting up, which is what I call being in touch with your loved one on the other side, connecting up with her son in spirit. Now, meet Daniel. Daniel was born in 1985, and he made the crossing into spirit in 2008, right after he passed. This was probably where I was the day after he passed, sitting in my bed, beating myself up, as so many of us do, with the, why didn't I do this? Why didn't I know? Daniel had passed from an overdose. I had woken up in the middle of the night, couldn't get back to sleep. The next day, I knew something, but I didn't know what I knew. Why didn't I call? Why didn't I? And beating myself up. And yet I should tell all of you, I had very early influences learning about the afterlife. I was not a newcomer to the afterlife when my son passed. I was 20 when this man helped heal my body from 4 years of illness and introduced me to the fact that there was this invisible world of spirit, which then brought me a great interest in mediumship, where I sat in the home of Jane Roberts, the medium who spoke for Seth. And I started going to mediums such as this incredible medium, Glendove. Starting back in the 80s, I wrote my book initially in 1985 when Daniel was born. And it was in 1989 when Mr. Dove told me that Mr. Edwards was around me and that I could work with healing. So it didn't matter what I knew. You walk in and you find that your child has gone to spirit before you. All that stuff comes up. So I'm sitting in the bed and I'm thinking, why didn't I know? And I hear in my head, not in Danny's voice, but in my own voice, and that little still voice that talks to all of us all the time, I hear, Mom, how could you have known? I didn't even know. And I thought, I guess you didn't, honey. And for a minute I felt better. But then I'd go back out, into the apartment where we had people visiting, and I would talk to everyone who would come feeling so bad for me. And I'd eventually convince myself that it was me trying to make myself feel better. And I could not believe that it would be so subtle, that I could really hear spirit, and it would be so subtle. And so I started pursuing mediums. I went to many, many mediums in the first couple of years after Danny passed, although these two were the two main angels that really made the difference in my life, Glendove and Roland Comtois. And many of you have met Roland. He's the man known for his messages that come to him on what he calls the purple papers. Daniel, by the way, was born in Texas. So these men helped me very much, but I needed to go to them because I didn't understand that it came right to me, and it comes right to all of us and to all of you. Now, this is a couple days after he passed. Same situation. I'm just sitting in bed, sitting around right after he passed, and it comes into my mind to play a certain song on my computer that was there because I had imported a song list. I didn't know the song, but something just moved me to play it. And I read the lyrics, and now he's gone maybe a day or two. And it said, if I leave tomorrow, would you still remember me? For I must be traveling on. There's too many places I've got to see. But if I stay here with you, things couldn't be the same. I'm free as a bird now, and this bird you cannot change. And it went on to just say, and this bird you cannot change. Lord knows I can't change. And I just felt that Danny was telling me that he couldn't really get with the program. He couldn't really make it here. So I decided, since the name of the song was Freebird, that I was going to call him Freebird as a nickname from now on. I see this light is, I hope not bothering you guys. So Freebird became his nickname. Now I'm going to tell you a story. This is very early on. He passed in early July, although that's a different story. And this was in August. My husband was going to go play golf up at the country club near where we used to live. We were now living in the city. And he asked me to come along, and I said, sure. And he pulls the car off the highway in the hometown where I raised my boys and where Danny and I would drive around in the car. And as any bereaved person will tell you in the beginning, you know, you get that stab in the heart. And I began to feel so heartbroken. And I feel this kind of big presence come around me. And in my head, again, in my voice, I hear, Mom, I'm with you all the time now. You don't understand that, you know, you think you really lost me, but I was half the time sleeping, running around with my friends. And I'm right there. And I got this wonderful sense that he was. And so I felt so much better. And I went with my husband and I rode around in the golf cart and I said, oh, you know, glory be, my son is with me. And 2 hours later, we get on the highway to drive back to Manhattan. And again, those doubts that hits all of us come over me. And I think, I don't know if that's you, Danny. That's just probably me, just trying to make me feel better. So we're pulling down the West Side Highway, and we're just about to turn off on 95th Street. And in my head comes the thought, Danny, if this is really you, and I'm not imagining this, please give me a sign. And I look over to the river, and there's a sailboat on the river, and I wish that I knew how to use, you know, Photoshop, because I would do that for you, but on the side of the boat in big block letters in royal blue, it said, Freebird. And I let out a scream. My husband got to turn and look just to see it for 1 second. I've never seen it again. But the reason I'm telling you all of this is because I'm going to show you all the lengths I've gone to both see and hear and experience spirit. And what it all comes down to in the end is that it was always coming right through and could come to each and every one of you without going to all those extremes. But I now would like to take you through some amazing videos. We were told by Roland and Glenn, I think both, that Daniel would be very good with lighting. So I think maybe of just a few weeks after he passed, my other son, Aaron, went to the hometown where the boys grew up. And he made this video. What I'm going to show you is this is an overhead light in a cul-de-sac. These are the houses down. This is the house down here. The houses were down here. This was way, way up. It's way, way up in the sky. And he went for a walk in the old neighborhood and he had his video on. Keep your eye on the light.
Put it back on, Dan.
So we started having experiences with lighting. Now, this happened. This was in the New York apartment. This light is the light that goes on at night when the sun goes down and it gets dark out. It's one of those sensor lights that would, like a night light that would just go on at night when the apartment was dark. And a couple of months after Danny passed, I walked out in the morning during the day. Down the hall here, there's a window so the sun would come in. And the sun's up and I see that this light is on. First, I didn't know what to think of it. And it wouldn't be every day, but some days, very sunny days, the light was on. So I started playing around just making videos of it and asking him to turn it on and off.
Okay, we're going to make a video and show everybody what you can do, Dan, okay? So, turn it off, Dan. Turn it off. Turn the light on. There you go. Okay, can you put it back on? Whoa. You are the best, Danny boy. Oh, God. Look at that light. Thanks, baby boy. I love you.
And it happened quite a lot.
My boy's been giving me a run for my money today. Yep. Hey, Dad. Want to put the light on? You put it on? The whole world is watching, baby boy.
At that point, I was planning to show it to people.
Love you, Danny. So much.
And then there were other kinds of signs that how spirit even can pull this off is quite a mystery to me. I think there are certain things they can play with, like equipment. This obviously was something on a book, but I had gone to the Apple store to get my computer adjusted or something, and the way they always used to do it was they'd put your name up on a board and they'd say, watch the board when you get to number one, it's your turn. So I sat down at a table. This was before lockdown, when you went into stores and didn't think about it. And at some point I said, Dan, I'd really like a sign. And I look up to find my name. And there, my married name is Migdal, so that's Sheri M. You know, that's what the credit card was under. Look above me, Daniel M. Below me, there's another Daniel. I don't know what the R stands for, but with all the male and female names of people who could conceivably be ahead of me in line at the Apple store, I took that as a sign that Danny somehow was able to get a Daniel M above Sheri M. But this was very interesting. I had ordered the book by Helen Greaves called The Wheel of Eternity, and obviously he can't monkey with that. That was printed long before, and I had named him Freebird maybe 6 months before. But I had just gotten the book in the mail. It was sitting on my lap when I had the impulse to say, Danny, I'd really like a sign. And what I heard was, well, just look at that book in your lap. So I rip open the bag, and I start turning it around, and there on the side binder, it said Daniel, and it looks like a nice free bird. So again, Daniel could not make the book, but he could be aware that this binder was on the book, and he could influence me to ask for a sign and then discover the sign. So I know they can do things with lights and computers, but they also just work by going right into here. So Daniel was 22 when he passed, and he was born on October 22nd. So I always said that he was my 22 boy in any combination. And one day I went in the health food store. I asked Danny for a sign. At the last minute, I threw vitamins on the counter. I didn't even know why. And then when they came back as 22, I took it as a sign, because what are the chances? And again, I was walking down Amsterdam Avenue. I asked for a sign. I looked across the street. This was his favorite dog. He called her Mana. He didn't create that sign, but he could have taken that walk with me. And he could have known that I was passing this restaurant and given me that impulse. So it's definitely that there's a partnership. You've got to be open for it. So these are the kind of things that came initially. And then I learned about the Spitnevs. That's they, them, and Natalia Spitnev, who were, I read an article in where they said they believed that they were communicating with their son, who was in spirit, through the use of electronic voice phenomenon. And I had to know. I had to try. So I started to investigate. And I will tell you that no one gets there alone. And I owe a debt of gratitude to a few people. Sonia, as the pioneer of this work, who was the one who I think first brought and educated Craig about all this. These people and Vicky Talbot, I can only say that no one can, yes, that's not even true. People can do it totally on their own. But these are the people that she paved the path by starting it many, many years ago. Craig, I think, believes that it's his job to just keep helping to educate us. And I contacted him and he was so helpful to me. Aside from providing some directions, he would listen to my recordings and help me hear things I could not yet hear and just encouraged me. And I'm very, very grateful. This woman here, Vicky Talbot, she's got to be the most creative person in the field I've yet met. She has taught me to use sounds I never thought were possible, which I will play for you. Her son Braden passed years ago and started coming to her through her cell phone. And she is the woman who started, I believe, the Big Circle, or joined it, but really basically is at the center of it now. And she's an extraordinarily gifted researcher, and I thank her. I will be in great debt to these people because they helped me understand that, and as I said here, it's not rocket science. And they helped me learn what to do and how to do it. And you all can learn if you should care to, because all we really do as the person on our side is we play sound and we make a recording of it. That's really all that we do on our end. The reason this is a phenomenon and the reason it's amazing is because spirit will join us and they will do something we do not know how to do. And that is they can change sound into words through thought. I believe that's how it's done. At first I thought maybe it was a trick of the gibberish because I started out working only with human vocal gibberish, which is words that were spoken that were chopped into just gibberish, and spirit could influence that and turn it into words I could understand. And I wondered sometimes. And then Vicky came on the scene and started telling me that she could achieve EVPs through her washer and dryer. That opened a world to me of experimenting with what she told me is called transform EVPs, which are EVPs in which they did not even start with any human vocal. They started only with sound. So I'm going to play you now examples of some of the EVPs I have gotten over the years and tell you what kind of sound source. So first we'll play a couple that are made with what's called human vocal gibberish and of the English language. You're going to hear the gibberish running in the background because they need that sound in order to influence sound. But you'll hear it if you just listen. I say to Dan, Danny, can you say, I love you, Ma? And then I lowered the sound so that to isolate the EVP, but you'll hear, I love you, Ma. So here we go.
Danny, can you say I love you, Ma?
Do it one more time.
Danny, can you say I love you, Ma?
Now, here's another one made with human vocal gibberish. And this is a father asking his daughter, Alexandria, if she's happy. And then I believe you will be able to hear her say all of the time.
Alexandria, are you happy? Alexandria, are you happy?
Now, this EVP was made with human vocal gibberish, but in Portuguese. Sonia was so kind, Sonia Rinaldi, to send me some gibberish in the Portuguese language. So I asked my son or whoever, I said, say something to me in English so I know I can use this. and you will hear I speak in English, or I hope you will hear.
Say something to me in English to let me know I should use this.
I speak in English.
Say something to me in English to let me know I should use this.
I speak in English.
So those were all made with the human vocal gibberish, and I will use that exclusively if I'm doing readings for others, because I feel that they sound very human, basically because they're made with human sound. But I'm going to play for you now an EVP in which I used an electronic sound source made by a fellow named Keith Clark called Clipper. And I hear very clearly I am Danny, but he sounds like a robot. So take a listen. Because again, I'm playing a certain kind of sound, which he's using thought to influence. So the EVP will almost always reflect the sound source that you use. Although on some occasions we do hear their own voices, and that's a whole other story. But I want to play for you now one that I made using something I invented called finger scratch, where I literally just scratch my finger on the computer over by the mic input. And I hear in this, Mom, I'm happy. No vocals at all. And the last one I'm going to play for you is totally amazing, because Vicky Talbot taught me years ago to take, this is not it, but we use these old Nokia phones that have raised keys like we have on our computer. And we would just rub our fingers across the raised keys and record that. And I hear pretty clearly, always very available. So I think that it's not a trick of the sound. It's that spirit is coming through and working with us. The hard part is taking the time to go through your recordings a couple seconds at a time to find intelligible language. It's time consuming but very rewarding. So for any of you that think you just might want to try your hand at this, at my website, this fella, Joshua Freed, worked with me and made a slideshow that can be downloaded for free in PowerPoint or Keynote. And it will walk you through the steps necessary to download sound, a recording program, and a few steps that help so that when you save something, it goes into a file called EVP audio. You don't want to save your first EVP and not know where you saved it. So it has a few steps to help get you set up. If you get that far, there's also a link to a YouTube video I made that demonstrates how to make the recording, how to use the recording program, how to save things, how to highlight them, how to clip them off. All of this is at sheriperl.com under a link that says the EVP slideshow. All this is on that page, as well as Joshua's contact information if you should get stuck. I mean, he will charge because that's what he does for a living, but he could get anybody's set up in 20 minutes. He can, so, you know, once you have the components, you can play. For me, a great development was that I started using a sound source that also Keith Clark made, which most people don't hear anything, but I can actually hear and think a thought and get answers through this line. So it's like a wonderful source of information. The question for me is, will I be able to completely ever trust all the good things they tell me? Because we are doubters. From working with audibility and working with EVP, I then wanted to explore a little bit of imagery because I'd seen what Sonia could do. And I am still a marvel at the images that she brings through. Mine do not compare. But they illustrate to me that spirit is around. And if we put the conditions, if we set up the conditions for them to work with us, they will put images on reflective cloth, on bubble pack, through steam, through incense burning, and on your glasses. These are all made through different means, but all using light reflection on something. And spirit has to be working with us because I don't know how to impose that on a film myself. I don't know how to get this face on my glasses. I don't possess the knowledge. And that was what, this is the one that looks to me most like my son, although it's certainly not a perfect likeness. This looks like one of our dogs, Genevieve. But I do this part more because it's just fun and entertaining. And then I had a new development. And this started about 2 years ago. And that's because a couple of years ago, I purchased Lily, my little dog. And as Sonia Rinaldi says, Lily is the medium because starting at night in my bedroom in Manhattan, and now we are also in the country, but in both places, starting at night, Miss Lily, who you can see sitting right here, would start barking. I don't know how long it went on before it occurred to me, what does she see that I don't see? So I put on my video on the phone, on the iPhone, just use the phone camera and take a look. Oh my word. Now, if that were outside, you might say that it was pollen, but this is indoors in the bedroom. Here we go again. And this is directly after Lily went kind of nuts. Once I put on the video, they must stop bugging her because then she often goes to sleep. But till I put the video on, she's irate. And these are just still shots that I take from the video I make just to show you the amount. It's like, I would never have known that any of this was going on if it wasn't for Lily, which means that if spirit is around me, spirit is around all of us. And so then one day I'll just show you, here's some of the random shots I took of some of the beautiful orbs that came through in colors. I was just floored. I mean, here they are. What I had tried to take, this one was in the video. It just went from here down to there, down to there. But I started getting these magnificently colored orbs. I have no idea what the meaning was, but they still appeared random in the sense that I wasn't interacting with them. And then one day I was on this line and my spirit team whispers in my ear, you know, you can do more than that. You can interact with these orbs a little bit. Just do your dancing thing. I had been a dancer as a child, and I've danced around many bedrooms and living rooms. So one night I set the video up on myself. It's not much of a dancer, but I wanted you to see the orbs, and turned it on, and
white satin, never reaching the end. Letters are written, never meaning to send.
And so I will show you now. I've played around with that quite a bit, doing different types of things. And who would have believed? I mean, we don't see these things with our eyes, but the camera sees it. And it would look like I was almost interacting. I think especially in this one, I'm always amazed. It looks like I can see this light, but I didn't see anything. I was just goofing around, dancing in my bedroom. Here's one right here. And if you look at some of these, I think what it's telling us is that spirit is around us, but we don't see it. And that's why I always say to people, play around, experiment. I will tell you that what really gets me is I was very sad this particular night, and went to bed to pray. That's my head. And when I saw this video and I saw this light, I just said, when we pray, any of us, when we sincerely seek healing, we're not alone. But we don't have the faculties Lily has. We don't see it, and we don't hear it necessarily. And so I went so far as getting that proof. But I will tell you, there's no proof in the world that can match what I experienced with these two gentlemen. They are physical mediums. This is David Thompson, Gary Manion. I had the good fortune to be with David Thompson in Arizona. And right before lockdown, I guess a year before lockdown, Karen told me that Mr. Manion would be in Lilydale, which wasn't too far, and I flew to be with him. I was not out of body. I was not dreaming. I had had nothing to drink. I was as aware as I am in this moment. And I am telling you, and in this room, we had a red light on. It was not pitch black. And I will tell you in this room that a hand was materialized. That hand came and took mine, massaged my hand so lovingly. It was not attached to anything. There was nothing mechanical about it. It was a free-floating ectoplasmic materialization, as well as information from my son. One of the things of him telling me he actually passed on June 30th, not July 1, but we'll just let it ride. In Arizona with David Thompson, my son not only spoke to me through independent direct voice, but he then came over and put his hands on the top of my head and kissed the top of my head. Now, these are experiences that I know Wendy's had hundreds of. But any of you, because I know it was mentioned last week that Gary's going to be at Lilydale or in this part of the country, in the United States, any of you that have never had an experience of this nature and want some kind of proof that all of this is real, seeing and hearing is believing, and these guys are truly, truly gifted. So I went to all of that, right? All of that. And yet still, and this is to all the mothers and all those who've lost spouses, I had it all along. He was talking to me from day one. I just couldn't trust it. And I'll tell you how I think it works. I think that when we come into the physical body, we definitely take on a body and a physical brain, which in many ways can be a wonderful tool, not always a very good friend. But I really do believe that our consciousness is not limited to this brain, but goes out from us because it's not physical and is not limited to this. And so almost like radar, almost you can imagine this is your physical body, this is your being here, but your spirit, it can go all the way out and pick up all these thoughts and things and images and ideas because it's not limited to this. But what happens, the catch, is that by the time it makes it to the inner screen, we've decided it's imagination because we have been taught that all of this is because it comes through the same screen as our imagination does. It's like, look at this photo here. It's like, if you want to look at me now, you're going to look outward through your physical eyes. But if you want to look at spirit or where your loved ones are if they've passed, you have to look inside, into spirit. But that is the same window through which our imagination works, and we have been taught to dismiss it as cartoons. And so I encourage everyone to give some thought to that. I then came across these quotes by Albert Einstein one morning, shortly in the beginning of all this, before all the EVP, when Daniel would talk to me, and I'd say, but maybe it's just my imagination. And I heard him say, well, Mom, what do you think imagination is? And I thought, well, I never thought about that before. And then I found these quotes by Dr. Einstein, where he says, imagination is more important than knowledge. For knowledge is limited to all we now know and understand, while imagination embraces the entire world and all there ever will be to know and understand. And he goes on to say, a true sign of intelligence is not knowledge, but imagination. And I started to expand my idea that maybe what's coming in through the same screen, okay, I admit there seems to be one screen. Maybe it isn't all just cartoons that I've made up. Maybe it is messages from spirit. And so then it comes down to, I think, having faith, one, that spirit is real, right? But also faith in ourselves. What is it that blocks us from seeing our own worth and our own ability to bring these through? Look at the extremes I went to, only to understand that I'm not sorry, I'm thrilled and I love working. These things are all great fun, but they'll speak right to you, right directly to you. And I think that a lot of it comes down to, and you almost can't go through a spiritual growth or a development in all this without dealing a little bit with this. And this is a quote from Carl Jung. People will do anything, no matter how absurd, in order to avoid facing their own soul. One does not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious. Sometimes you have to look and see, maybe you don't think you're up to the task. And so I found that I had to take a look at, can I trust what comes to me, you know? And I also want to say the other thing I realized was we shouldn't be hard on ourselves, because as we all heard Christian Sundberg a couple weeks back, we enter into a physical body, we bring in a lot with us. We may bring in a lot of stuff to work out. We may bring in a lot of beauty and knowledge, but we may bring out come in with things to be worked out, challenges to be addressed. So I'm not telling anyone they're nuts to have doubts, because if we come in with the fight and flight response, we're kind of geared in the physical body to either beat the crap out of somebody or run. I mean, it's instinctual to some degree to have doubts. And so it brings me back to a quote made by Seth years ago, who said, think of doubts as rocks in the stream of your being, and just let yourself move around them. And I've learned that you just can't always pull them out. The doubting mind does doubt, but we can go around them. And by so doing, you can either, the choice is either to shut the door, put the curtains down and say, when you're gone, you're gone. I don't want to know. Or open the window. And maybe you can make connections to the people that you love. And I want to leave on one note, which is to say, before you start, whatever practice you do, with our material mediums, we do a lot of singing to raise the vibration. I don't think it's limited to prayer. I don't think it's limited to any religion. But cover yourself with light. Just as you wouldn't go into a foreign country in the middle of the night, jump into a car and drive off with someone you didn't know at the wheel. When we embark on these journeys, I think it is wise, and I've learned from my own experience, it's just wise to bring in the light. They say, don't go on if you're upset. Don't open your line. Don't talk to spirit if you're down. Well, you know what? Sometimes when I'm upset, spirit's my greatest comfort. It's hard to keep the thermostat at a constant 80 degrees. We're human. But the light is our protection. So I say to anyone that wants to work with, just connecting with your loved ones before you open the window, encompass yourself in the circle of light, protection, so only good and love may enter. And then explore and have fun, because spirit is around all of us. And that's basically what I wanted to share. What is lost in the flesh can be indeed found in the spirit.